welcome everybody to episode 1 of 3D Print Doctor. You can blame Stu for the name. We actually love it. I hope you do as well. And I'm expecting that all of you here are here because you're either really interested in 3D printers or you've received your STEM.T4L kits or are about to. Before I kick off, I would like to just do a very, very short welcome to country. So I'd like to acknowledge those lands that we're on at the moment. I'm at the Gadigal at the moment, and like to pay respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to any Aboriginal people that may be attending this particular webinar. Welcome. We will have microphones off at the moment, but we'll get sort of a little bit of housekeeping. I think the easiest way for us to work it, if any of you have been on Yammer hotspots when Stu and myself run those on Monday, we're going to try and keep it to a certain extent as light as that. This might even be a little bit lighter. We're trying to do the hands-on, and the whole premises of this is to get everybody started with the new 3D printer. This is a brand new 3D printer, the Adventurer 4 that has come out, replacing the old purple FlashForge Inventor 2 SE. It is quite a bit bigger, and the quality of the prints is as good, if not better, than the old printer. But there is some subtle differences, so we thought we'd go through and show you how to get into it. The most important thing that I did find was that people still, even though they get the 3D printer kits, are still unaware of the basic processes from design modelling to the 3D printer, and we'll go through all of that. I'm going to do some stuff with presentations on web pages so that you can find where to go easier and to get some more resources. We're going to keep adding to those, and if you've been involved with the STEM.T4L at all, you will know that the learning units and the resources are constantly flowing and being developed to assist all of you out in the wild and going from there. For those of you who don't know me, Greg Tardiani, and I was a teacher for over 40 odd years in secondary schools, and unfortunately we don't have any secondary schools that have booked these kits this time around. Primary school teachers, you are amazing, and I applaud you constantly on how you integrate everything within your classrooms. Loves coming out and watching what you do. So thank you very, very much. Let's see how we can get on with these units. You should have received 2 boxes. Somebody did ask earlier, do we get a laptop? Oh, good. Lewis is a high school. Thank you, Lewis. I must have missed that one on the list that came through. Anybody else with a high school? Throw your hand up, throw it in the comments, because it makes it easier for me. I'd love to see more secondary people getting on board. 2, excellent. You're at the same school, aren't you? The laptop question was asked about whether a laptop. This particular time we decided not to add a laptop. That was a packaging thing, as well as the reality is if you're going to get the kit, it's probably good to go through the process of installing the software required to make this work and going through that process to start off with. There will be, if they're not already is, and we're going to go through that now, on where to get the software to be able to do the slicing, and I'll throw you through on the processes involved in doing that to get you going and get them on your T4L machines. And it gives you a little more flexibility and ownership of that side of it as well. The camera has gone blurry. That might be your end. I'm clear here, so
yeah, you're clear with me as well, Greg.
Let me know it might be your end at that there. Hopefully it will clear up a little bit for you. Hopefully the audio is good for you, and if not, the recording should be good, so you can go back and have a quick little look at that a little later on. So let's get kicked in. How many have we got? We've got 26 people on board, which is absolute 27. They're coming on. So welcome to those that have come in a little bit later. So when you get your boxes, I'm only going to use 1. I'm not going to show you 2. The whole idea of the road case is so that it can actually survive. The printers themselves are reasonably durable. They do not like being transported around. However, the FlashForges can be good. We have had some unfortunate couriers and they tended to roll them from one end or kick them off the back of the truck, so that did damage them. This particular iteration, the FlashForge Adventurer 4, does appear to have a little bit more durability than the inventor. And that's a natural progression. 3D printers are constantly evolving and improving over time. I've only got to go back about 5 years ago, and 3D printers were pretty much hobbyist. They were created out of originally inkjet printers. That's where they came from. They grabbed the mechanisms and they modelled those around, stuck them in some frames, and they invented 3D printing and put some sort of print head. It was all sorts of weird stuff that was going on. It's not that long ago. 3D printing's been around, however, for about 30 years, and that sort of is a bit of an interesting one. At a more sort of hobbyist getting into it level, about 20 years they've been sort of in the public eye, but in industry they've been around for a while, and they are taking off. Have a look at Elon Musk stuff. So let's get into it. Can I have a bit of a show as to whether you can see everything? I've got zoom control, etc., and I will zoom in and out, and we'll get into it and make it a little bit, which I might actually do because I'm going to go down to the box. So let me zoom in a bit, and if you can let me know when I've gone.
Yeah, you've centered it, lower it down and zoom in a bit. Yep.
Hang on, I've got to get it round right. I'll actually go up because the printer's going to end up being on top. So when you get it, there's a number of ways you can do it. Undo your little clips on the sides, nice and easy. I would please recommend that you do have a couple of people to help you out, get it off. I'm going to do this backwards. I'm going to do this now, and then we'll go and have a look at the web pages, etc. So grab this, two people either side, pull it off, and you do have to lift it up quite high. On the top, you should get, and yours will be laminated, you will actually get a little quick guide. This is sort of it's a really quick guide. There's a lot of steps, like the little specific steps that are missing from this, but they will get you started if you've got a bit of an idea of what's going, bit of an idea of what's going on with mechanical things, etc. Your 3D printer's inside here, and it does fit snugly, so again, so that it's quite durable. The easiest way I find to get it out is to give it a little tip. I put that down on the floor. Somebody asked about where the tools, etc. were. They're in the base, so you may not have pulled the printer out at this point in time. Grab your tools. There's a power lead in here that you will need. And I've got the plastic bag, but that will be for your filament. Now, you will have a roll of filament sitting in those. We can get them to you. That'll be an interesting one. If they haven't arrived, they should be there. The roll of filament looks like so. These are 1 kilogram rolls, so they're quite efficient in terms of pricing, because the more you've got, the less it always goes down. It's like buying things in bulk at Costco, etc. And this should be what you have in your 3D printer. If you reorder this or get it as a second round, you will find that that will maybe used, etc., but it will slowly come down. Thanks, Harley. And filament is what you use. It's rather interesting. I'll have a look at that a little bit closer for you as we get into it. What I then recommend you do, and this is completely up to you, take your printer and either stick it on a bench, if you've got a good bench space to put it, or alternatively, the road case is a brilliant spot to put your 3D printer. The other thing that it does actually allow you to do is move it around. So that's one of the big bonuses that you get. We'll put that up on the top there.
Brakes on the wheels might help too, yeah?
I hate brakes on the wheels, but we'll put them on. There we go. Greg's usually bad at doing stuff like that, but I'm being good today. So brakes on the, if it was in the classroom, yes, put your brakes on and that'll lock it into position. But if you're moving it around, just holding it, unless you're going up some quite steep ramps, it's a way of moving it from classroom to classroom. So that really is good. You will notice that I have already got a 3D print on here because I did a quick little test and I wanted to be able to show you a couple of things. I'll get rid of that. Next thing you'll need to do is kick in and start looking at setting it up with your power cord. This is really nice and easy. There is no power brick. It's just a kettle cord. So simplified that part of it quite a lot. So once it's on, and if you've watched the videos at all, it should go through this and sort of just give you somewhere to revert back to. Power is on the right-hand side. Right-hand side, turn it on, and you'll find it'll start up for you. And basically, you're almost ready to print. A few more things to play with, but we'll get onto it. Now, what I'm going to do here, I only use that because I've got funny fingers that don't always work with touchscreens, and so I use a pen occasionally. And also it means that you can see what I'm touching if I'm going through it. Okay, I'm going to pull out the print there so that I can remove this. But what I do want to show you is, that's showing you, I stopped this print halfway through specifically so that I could show you that if you haven't seen a 3D print, 3D prints do not print solid. They print a little matrix on the inside, or an infill it's called, that sort of is, in this sense, it is a hexagon. So we can now start talking about bees and all sorts of stuff if you want to get into it. It's rather clear. The number of sort of side lines that you can play with kids is really good. And there is the perfect way of releasing it. This is a little flexible print bed, pops off. There's your 3D print for you, ready to go. And it comes off nicely. A few little things that are just sitting on here that we need to probably remove. And if you want to get pedantic in our toolkit, should have shown you this already, but we'll do it now. So in your toolkit, let me get there so I can see. Here we go. In your toolkit, you will have an extra nozzle, and these are brilliant because they will allow you to do different filaments. We'll talk about that when we get into it. There is some lubricant, which I, for one, have never used. There is a leveling guide as a spare. I'll show you where the one is that comes with it. A couple of spare little sections for the feeding tube. There is what I call a swizzle stick for clearing out the nozzle. I hope that you never have to use it with this one. Very rarely do we use it. Some Allen keys if we really get into the nitty-gritty of it. Again, hope we don't need to. There's a USB stick that hopefully it will definitely be in yours because they're new kits, but hopefully it will stay there as well. But it doesn't have to be this USB stick. It could be any USB stick. Little screwdriver and a spatula or scraper, whatever you want to call it, which I'm going to use right now just to get rid of the last little bits that are sitting on here. It's always a good idea to do this on a flat surface so that you don't take that off. Now, a question came through before on what do we use on the, and that's an interesting one there. What do we use on this to help or limit the sticking? I use nothing on these now as compared to what we used with the Inventor. That's a different build plate material. This sticks really well to a point where I think the point was made in the questions, it stuck a little too well. Somebody made a comment, I think it would have been in one of the Yammer threads, that they use glue sticks. I do not use glue sticks at all on any of my 3D prints anymore. If I have to use something that is going to help adhesion, because it's an interesting thing if you've got the old one about real estate, what's the three most important things? Location, location, and location. 3D printer is the most important things is first layer adhesion, first layer adhesion, first layer adhesion. If your print doesn't stick to the plate the first time round, it will ruin. You will always get a failed print if it doesn't stick well. So you're going to make it stick. What I now use is this particular product. I have found I haven't had to use it on the Adventurer 4 like I had to use on the Inventor 3 because this build plate tends to be really, really good. And I have found that this actually makes it worse. The best thing for this build plate is isopropyl alcohol, which you can get at Bunnings. I think this is about $12 for a little bottle like this, and you can get a smaller one. It's a cleaning agent. So it cleans the surface and then the 3D print sticks really, really well. So there's a few things that you will experiment with and get in touch with me and we'll have a play with it. Now, you will notice that in the bottom of your 3D printer box, there was a little cutout for this. We were originally going to do this because when we started this quite a while ago in getting the packaging, we decided to put the 3D lac in because we still hadn't actually had one of these to fully test. And so I assumed that we would still need 3D lac to help it stick, and we got it started up. We then found that the problem with this is that it's highly flammable, and transporting it, there is a problem. Now we also know that we don't really want to use this, so we are going to only ship or recommend that you purchase something like the 3D lac if, as a last resort, you need it to be able to help it stick. I'm sort of in the mood now, or in the position now where I'm basically thinking cleaning with isopropyl alcohol improves this much better than trying to use 3D lac. The other thing is that little bed there is a $9 replacement part, which is probably, when you've worn this out, better at putting a $9 part in, because I think this is about $12, so it's a bit weird, eh? Okay, so let's get down to how to use and get yourself started. 3D printing, there are 3 steps involved in getting yourself going with a 3D printer. The first one is the modelling. Now, there's a bunch of videos available. I'll get onto that a little bit later. There's a bunch of videos available for you on using, what are we using? Tinkercad. It's online, free for your kids to use and for you to be able to use them. It's another one, pop up. And allows you to model a 3D object. Now, I've told this story hundreds and hundreds of times, but my past life as a teacher was a TAS teacher, and part of that is always in workshops, etc., as well as doing software design, engineering, etc., all the areas within that field or within that faculty. But in the build side of things, I did find it interesting that I came up with the idea that something like about 80 to 90% of people really aren't that good at making things. Turning a block of wood or a piece of steel into something using tools is becoming very much less and less of a skill that people are good at. And I do praise all the mothers on the planet, because when Johnny brings home this abomination of a jewellery box or something or other, it's fantastic that mums go, that is just brilliant, and they love us because we've made something, and it's really, really good. The interesting thing with 3D printing is it's an evolving process. That skill, hand-eye coordination is something that you do not need as much. It's rather interesting too, because when you try to make something in wood, it doesn't always come out, or even metal or plastics or whatever it is, doesn't always come out as to what's in your head, and that's a bit frustrating. With 3D printing, by using Tinkercad or any other type of CAD tool, is that kids have got this innate ability to take what's in their heads and transfer it onto a model in a tool that allows them to do it. These modelling tools, Tinkercad. A good one for the secondary guys is Onshape. I'd be looking at that. I do know that Fusion 360 is popular in the secondary environment. But stay with Tinkercad for the moment, and we'll even probably have an episode completely on Tinkercad to augment the videos that are available already. Now, cater to Tinkercad, use it. It's dead simple to use. If you've got lilies, the best thing that I ever did was I went to the toy store and I bought wooden blocks, those beautiful little coloured wooden blocks that we probably all played with as kids, but we tend not to do as much. We give the kids iPads. Go get yourself a set of the wooden or plastic blocks, and when the kids are trying to, or you're setting, we're trying to make a so-and-so, whatever it is that you're trying to make, they can actually place the blocks in to create the shape that's in their head. Now, that's all you're doing in Tinkercad. You're taking those blocks, cubes, spheres, pyramids, etc., and you're turning them into a shape by joining them all together. So taking the physical blocks is a real good way of going through that process and getting that working for your kids, so they get an idea of what they're doing and how it actually builds it up, because that's all the 3D printer is doing. It does put the hollow bit and turns it into one piece, but it's good. Modelling is 90% of 3D printing. This and the next step I'm going to do with the middle step are just means by which to get it to come out and arrive at your, where did I put it? Arrive at your 3D printing object at the end. So, modelling, the most important part. Most frustrating part is probably these things because they're a mechanical item. So the next step after modelling is called slicing. Now, if any of you have been around long enough to know of very, very old printers that were around, dot matrix, even before then, there were steps where we were playing in DOS, etc. You would have whatever it was. I was trying to think of some word processing. Chime in, Stu, you'll remember some of the weird word processing apps we used to use. You would take that, you would have to put it through a printer renderer, and then you would be able to print it on your printer. This is the same sort of thing. Now we've got to do the same thing. So the slicing is taking your object in the 3D world on your computer and breaking it up into layers that then the 3D printer can actually lay down the little string of filament and then slowly build it up. So it lays one layer, moves up, lays another, and so on until you end up with your final product. Once you've sliced it, turned it into what we call G-code, we plug it into here, we say print it, and away you go. I have a little throwaway line is you watch it for a while. Most of us will get bored and just let it do its thing and then come back however long and get it done. One thing you do need to remember, 3D printing does take quite a long time. Even basic 3D printing, let me get my chat up so I can keep an eye on what's happening there. 3D printing objects, the small things can, like a little name tag, can take an hour. Little hint when you first start this, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, you could put 2, 3, 4 kids' jobs on one print. It won't speed up the overall print. If it takes an hour to do each print, and you've got 4 kids' name tags, for example, it'll take 4 hours to do those prints. What you are making yourself more efficient with as a teacher in a classroom is you don't have to take 1 off 4 times. You just take 4 off once. So it speeds things up a little bit that way. So let's get on and have a little bit of a look at how you pulled it out. We've pulled it out, and the next thing we need to do is make sure that the filament has been loaded. Now, this one's got filament loaded, which is what could arrive at your school if you were getting this the second time around. I'm going to go through, and again, if you watch the videos, they will come through really nicely for you. So let's have a look. We're going to prepare this, and then we're going to look at filament. Is that close enough to see? What do we need to get a bit closer? I think we might get a little closer. Let's see what we can do here. Okay, so I'll go back one. So this is your main menu, and you've got build, prepare, settings, and maintain. They should be coming to you pretty much default. So there's very, very little that you should need to do. To get your filament in, because you'll also be sitting in the box, we go to maintain and then filament. Video will show you step by step exactly how to do this, so you can go through that or this again. And then it'll have some options. You can do it manually. I've never bothered doing that. You can go to change or just load. I tend to do change no matter if I've got filament in there or not, because it will help clear. If you think it's gone, it's been removed, but it actually hasn't. Now what that's going to do to start off with, it has to heat up the nozzle. Throw your 3D printer now, you'll see this starting to move up. Good, we can see it. Stay over there. And underneath here we have a nozzle which can heat up to over 250 degrees Celsius. So it's hot. It is tiny though. I sometimes joke that if you burn yourself on the nozzle, you'd have to really want to burn yourself, but you can do it. And as you can see, there's our first little bit of filament that's come out. I don't think I'm even going to try and show you on the video here because it will be almost impossible to see or focus because it isn't focusing on me. The filament that comes out, and let's just push this out. So let's get a roll out to insert. Here's the filament roll I've been using on this and testing it already. The diameter of the filament is 1.7 mil. And when it goes through the nozzle, it gets melted down and extruded at 0.4 of a millimetre. So it does bring it down by quite a lot and then lays that down nicely for that particular resolution. A little bit about filament. This is called PLA. I cannot remember what PLA stands for. Anybody who does, please throw it in on the chat. PLA is loosely based on a cornstarch basis, so it's organic. It has little, if no, toxins in it. Filaments, which were probably the most prevalent when 3D printing first started, was ABS. The easiest thing for ABS is the plastic that they used to use in Lego bricks. Lego now uses an environmental vegetable-based or plant-based plastic now. They've completely gone green on their plastics as well. PLA is no problems using it in a classroom, etc. It gives off very little. It used to smell a little bit sugary, but they tend to have even taken that out. I don't smell it anymore. ABS can give you a headache in a closed space. I would always recommend, if you're going to use ABS, we only supply PLA to the STEM kits. But if you do want to go to ABS, and these printers can do exotic filaments, but make sure it's in a very well ventilated space. It can get a bit on the nose, and I have got headaches from it. Now, I'm going to insert this now, and I want to show you, right. See the end of this nozzle? It's actually cleaned up quite nicely, but it's not square. It's got a little taper on the end, and it's often got when you pull it out, quite a long string of filament. You need to have a nice square end. Now, in the video, I do show you, I'll bring it back when I'm here so you can see. I do show you that you can cut it. I do find that I can just spin it around and I'll end up with a nice, there we go. I do end up with a nice end. It just has to be square and not have a bulb or anything like that, because it will make it a little bit difficult. Now, I'm going to spin this around so that you can see what's going on. It's another reason why I don't want this locking up. Get up here. You made me lock it, didn't you, Stu?
Sorry. PLA is polylactic acid, Greg.
Is it?
Polylactic acid.
Polylactic acid. So, have I got that in the right spot? Okay, now, little rookie mistakes with a few things is rather interesting here. With your filament, one of the things that you do need to check, if you've had a roll that's like this, it's halfway being used, you've put it in storage and then you pulled it back out again, you may have some of your loops crossed over. If they do get crossed over, they can jam while you're printing. So if you suspect that there's any little loops that have gone in and underneath each other, pull it out, get back to a base and then roll it back on again, because it will ruin a print and it's a real waste of time and filament. Make sure that when you're putting it in, that you're putting it with the filament coming up and under. Do not have it going this way. It won't work. It'll jam. So up and under, put it on the end. And I'm going to take this cover off, but you will find you don't need to later on. You'll find it later on. This cover will just come off. The feed mechanism is here, and there's a little arrow, and you've got to fiddle around and find where the hole is underneath. It's relatively simple to find. You just follow it, and it's probably 4 or 5 millimetres back from the front here. Slide that up so it touches, and if you can, you might be able to see. It's come up against the little feed wheel, so you can actually see it, but you would have to take this off to actually see it. Really easy to put back, but I will put it back later on so you can still see what's going on. I'll now go back, if it hasn't timed out. Hopefully it hasn't. Yep, I will need to. Please wait, temperature. Let's get out of there. Okay, so we'll go to change. Okay, I've got to go through the change again, and it'll spit it out and we'll get into it. So in the meantime, what I'm going to do so that'll take a couple of minutes. So, can everybody see that page? Hopefully you can.
Yep.
So the 3D Print Doctor page will be in the links that have come out to you today, and you'll be able to have a look at that. This is just a web page that we've put together. Any of your hotspots people will recognise this. Stu designed it and came up with the colours, and I loved them, and I couldn't find anything better. So you will actually be able to use this nicely to find everything that you need on your 3D. It will also have for you a very short agenda as to what we're going to do today. And after this, I will put the recording down under here so you'll be able to watch it later on. I have also put in some resources over here. This is very, very new, so that you can actually see what's going on with the resources here. And can I get rid of that? I can. Good. 3D kit, it's on the SharePoint, so it shows you this here, and also the YouTube playlist, which I'll get to now. So if you've first time getting into STEM Share, you need to find the stem.t4l webpage, and that you should be able to just search, or it'll come up in the T4L on the portal for you, and it gives you all the STEM kits that are in and available for you. But you're mainly targeting the 3D printer kit. The 3D printer kit has got some brilliant ideas, even running over from the original kit. We've learnt heaps, and the resources that have been developed are invaluable. Many of them are very much related to the modelling side of things. So that is really well worth having a look at. And there's some really good learning challenges in here. The stages, the Kane's digital architecture, Toy Story. There's some really good ideas for you, and there's more than just one page of units in here for you to look at. Support guides are sitting here as well. This will evolve to be specific for the FlashForge Adventurer 4. So keep a lookout for this as it changes. And there's some really good stuff, even some third-party tools for you to actually have a look at. The videos, again, I've thrown links in there, and they're on the resource pages for you. These are 3 brand new ones specific to the FlashForge printer and are a reasonably good and comprehensive guide. Probably not quite as comprehensive as what this webinar is trying to do for you, because we do want to be able to get in and answer specific questions that you have on how does this thing work, how do I fit it into my classroom, why is it not doing blah, 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 etc. And so have a look at these particular videos in your spare time. Now, it should be ready to go, so I'm going to go back and kick off that so I can see what's going on. Are we back? Yep. Okay, now, around the front, we'll go to next again, and next. Now, that'll push it out. Now, what's happening now, you should be able to see, is it's dragging it in, because it's picked up the filament on the side, and eventually what's going to happen is it will start to come out. Now, rookie mistake, and I use that because, one, I've done it. A couple of guys that were using it when we first started did exactly the same thing, and it's so easy to do, is that it does say complete, but as we tend to do, us poor males, we don't read things. It'll take about 2 minutes. Click complete when you see filament coming out of the nozzle. If you just press complete, nothing comes out, and you are completely finished with setting up your 3D printer. So we're going to wait for that to feed through. It's coming through what's called a Bowden tube. It's the way it works. Those of you who have had the little inventor will have found that the filament was being just fed in through a black tube, which did nothing, and then there was the feed mechanism was in the head of the printer. Here we go, it's all in there and the fan's doing its job. This feed mechanism is at the side. There is a Bowden tube named after the guy who designed this particular version, and it came through, get down here. Now wait for it to sort of just come out a little bit. You will get to a stage where you don't let it go out until it stops. I'm going to stop that now. Now we can press complete because it's coming out. Once it's come out, you can just pull that off nice and easily, and you've got your first little bit of filament. And it's actually an interesting learning thing for the kids to be looking at, because they will be able to see how the filament gets created and that it's actually quite strong. Surprising how strong it is. Now we've got that set up nicely. The next thing is probably the trickiest part. I would recommend that you do this with your printer when you first get it. There was a point when we had the original firmware on our first sample where I was having to level quite regularly. I have now found I almost never have to do it after the first time. So whatever they've done with the firmware and the new software, it has solved that problem, and it's making it really, really good. You will find we've got to go into this leveling process at least once. And if you ever have problems with a 3D print that just doesn't want to stick to the print bed, 9 times out of 10, it's a leveling issue. And I would go back to leveling/calibration is what it's called in the setup here. What you'll need to do is get yourself, I'm going to have fun getting this out. It's a little bit old school, but it really is a clever system. You need this little, yes you can see it, this little piece of foil, which is exactly the right thickness. I think I measured it and it's 0.05 of a millimetre. So we're looking at a really fine tolerance gap between the tip of the nozzle and the print bed so that it can start laying down the filament. So the next stage we have to do is we need to go in. I will use the pen if I've got it so that you can see what's going on. And yep, that's good. So we're going to go now, I'm going to go back. We now need to go into, where is it? Maintain. So go to maintain and then calibration. Use the 9-point calibration, which is the point down the bottom here. And the most important thing, and I'll show you after I've done this, is to make sure that the print bed, the flexible print bed, is seated correctly. There are 2 little slots at the back that it'll go into. So when you're pulling it out, these 2 have to go under 2 little slots at the back. You slide that in, make sure that none of them are sitting on the top, and also make sure that there's no debris, old print pieces or whatever, sitting on the, I'll leave that there, on the silver part of the print bed. Make sure that you've got no debris, nothing that's in between this print bed, because it will muck up the flat. This needs to be really nice and flat for your 3D model to be able to adhere well. So the next step that I've got to do is I've got to sort of slide this under. Okay, it's actually already showing up that it's actually moved since I've moved it in and out. So I put this under and I've got to try and slide this between the print bed and the nozzle. To be able to adjust it over here, I will normally go to the 0.5 millimetre, and I've got to make it a bit wider because it won't go between, and I'll just move it up. This is the new sort of little sequence. It does this little hop up and down. Now it's moved too far, so it was really, really close. So now I'm going to go down, but I'm going to move to the middle, the 0.1 millimetre, and go down. Still needs to go down a little bit more. We'll go twice. And after the first one, you will find that you've got a bit of an idea of what you're aiming for. Good if I actually put the foil between the nozzle. I'm going to get that.
Greg, is that pointer you're using anything special or just a stick?
Yes. Yeah, it comes with the kit and it's very specific.
The stylus in your hand.
Oh, this thing? No, that's my Windows pen.
But it doesn't need to be smart or anything. It's
No,
just
not at all. I'm only using that because it one makes it easier for everyone to see what I'm touching. Okay, so I'm slowly making that go up. You're being a bit stubborn today. There we go. Now, yep, that's good. All right. Let me see if I can describe the feeling. What you're after is when this goes underneath the nozzle and between the print bed, you're trying to feel a slight pull between them. If it slides with no resistance, it's too wide a gap. If it really is hard to get it in, then it's too close. It just needs to be sort of like a nice little pull. Once you've got that, you'll get the feeling after a while. You'll find that it is nice. That one there is pretty close to perfect. I'd probably go down 1. Yeah, just go down 1.05, just makes it a little bit closer and then it'll print. We can now go to next. Go yes, if it's the first time you've done it, go to yes, do the 9 point. Now it's going to jump around and do 9 points of leveling. And you just redo that 9 times. Let's go up.
So Greg, Suda's asked, does the foil slide between?
Yeah, the foil's got to slide between the nozzle and the print bed so that you're actually putting it between the two. Now, I'm not going to go through and do this for all of them at the moment, so I'm just going to go through and go next and then cancel. I'm pretty close and I'll get some semblance, but need to go through that. We don't really have to. What's our time like? 4:09?
It's 4:09.
Yep. Okay, we'll assume that that's still going to work. Don't lose your little filament, your little slide. As a last resort, if you find you haven't got that, you can use a piece of paper, A4 paper to tear off the side. That's the same thickness, it's just that it's not durable and it doesn't last. So
how often do you have to do that, Greg?
Now, that's the interesting thing. The old ones we had to do it quite often. Now I'm finding I do it once, that's about it. Here's the way to make sure that you don't have to level as often as we used to. If you remove your model after you've taken it off with the print bed, so the way we did it, we took it out, we cracked it off, and then we put it back in, you'll find you rarely have to level or re-level. If you try to take it off while it's sitting here, that will move it and you will have to level more often. So you've got to decide how you're going to do it. And I find and I recommend all the time, make sure that you take the print when it's finished off and then go from there. All right, next little step, we'll just go through quickly. Any questions at this point in time? I should go questions.
Sian's just said that she has an old printer and has never leveled in 1.5 years, but might need to learn how to do that. Yeah.
So get in touch with me, give us an email. We'll set up a little specific little one-on-one with you, and we'll see if we can work out what the problem is with your 3D printer. What else have we got? Yeah, foil slides between. I totally agree there, Anwar. In terms of the struggling in getting it there, it's one of those, it's the most annoying part of 3D printing. I will say that straight up. But once you've got it and you've got that little, just sliding it, filling that little bit of resistance, you're well on your way. Something that worked, I like that. That means we've got a positive. I'll try, good. Thank you, Stu, for the acronym naming. I'm just having a quick look. Harley's got in there as well. But the vision has, oh, okay, sorry about that, Samuel. Hopefully it's returned for you.
Yeah,
Okay,
all good.
Yep,
Greg, I've heard that Paint 3D, Microsoft's Paint 3D tool, can be used to actually easily create a 3D model and then produce an STL for printing.
Paint 3D you can do it with as well, and also you've got Microsoft's 3D Builder, which you can install and is available on the T4L on UDM. Now, the next step, I'm going to jump slightly ahead so that you've got yourself started, because I want to, between now and next week, for you to have a bit of a play and see where you get, throw to those videos and see how far you get with that. This is the basic unboxing, leveling, and then you go in with your first print. To do your first print, we would go to build, and I'm going to go to local files. The prints that I have in the suggestion for 3D printing is they are also on the USB stick, and choose one of the default ones. I do have some extras in here. The one that I was just showing you, which is this one here, I've just selected that in the list. Interesting thing is, if you have a model of what your kids are making or that you've done and you plug it into the USB port, you don't need to leave the USB port, stick in there. You can take it out. The print that you're trying to do, or the model, gets transferred to the onboard memory, so it will remember everything for you. I now go build, and I'm going to let it go. Now, I'm expecting, because the leveling was slightly different, that this may not stick quite well, but we'll see what happens, and then we're going to do that in the background. So, however, it didn't print completely their design. With Tinkercad, if you don't group everything at the end of it, sometimes you will have bits that are missing. So see if that is something that you may have missed. There is a step where you've got to select everything and group it all. Some things, because it's made of individual blocks, 3D blocks, like those little wooden blocks that I was talking about, if they're not combined, it doesn't know that they exist as a unit, and so it has 4 or 5 parts and it'll only print one part for you. Hopefully that might help you.
Shalini also asked, is Tinkercad also on iPads or is there a different program?
Yeah, it's completely online. So Tinkercad is on Windows, Mac, iPad, and Chromebook. So you can do it on any of them.
So it's a browser-based.
Browser-based.
Tool. And Samuel asked about leveling. Do you still need to level it if you've moved the printer?
Okay, the way I do that is I will throw a quick little print on it to see whether it's printing. And if I get a failure, then I'll level it. Of course, you'll know within the first 30 seconds to a minute if it lays it down. I have, these printers are rather clever. I've actually picked this printer up and turned it upside down and it keeps printing. When it gets out of level is if you have an impact. So if you drop it or it gets hit quite heavily, you will sometimes get a misalignment because the mechanisms will jar or move slightly. But if you just pick it up and move it, these are amazing. They're one of the few, if only printer I've ever played with where I can do that, because I've had printers where if you do that, it just will completely ruin the print. These are quite robust. The mechanisms are really, really good. Even grouping doesn't work. We'll have to have a look at what the models are and see why that is. Even putting it on a platform when printing. So yeah, we need to sit down and have a chat because there's a few little issues. And part of what we're doing with this webinar is going through these little issues that people do have and solving them, because as a community, we could actually be in a position where your problem is actually somebody else's problem and they're just not willing to put their hand up and say, it's doing the same thing, or don't realise it's the same problem, and there's a solution out there for it as well. So really, really good to be able to just get there and communicate. Now, I'm going to let that go. That actually is printing. So we've had a little bit of a win there. Where did I put that? I'm going to try and zoom in so you can see it.
What is it that you're printing? Is it the rest of that model?
Oh, it's the same thing, yeah. Right, that's okay there. Now, what I am going to do is go to the ellipsis and turn the light off. Does that make it any better?
Yeah, we can see the outlines.
Yeah, so what that's done is it's just laid that down a bit. And the reason why we're probably having success is we did level the middle, which is where this is printing. It was a little bit higher on the edges, but I thought I could get away with it. And you'll now start to see how it's laying down the lines. Now, here's one for you to remember, because I will do this a number of times with you when I'm going through the printing. This particular print is putting down what's called a raft. Now, when we get into the slicing software, and I need to do that, so please make sure that I don't end this video without doing the basic with slicings, because you've got a little bit of homework to do, boys and girls. The raft is enlarging the surface area of the object to the print bed, and it throws down basically a raft, and then it prints the object on top of it. So, yep, I can do this. So this particular one here, you'll notice that there's a little surround around it. That is not part of the print. There's the raft. So that's the bit that's being printed at the moment, and there is the object that got printed. And it actually, and there's the base, so it's actually put a base on it, and it comes off. Now, last ever resort, if I'm having trouble getting something to adhere to the print bed, the raft is the last thing that I will go to. 90% of my prints, I never use any bed adhesion assistance. There's two versions of it. Raft is the most aggressive. You then have a brim, and what it would do is it would put, if I show you that, it'll only put a little surround around the outside, very much like a top hat. It just puts the brim of the top hat down, and that gives it just enough foothold. And what I actually describe to people, if I was trying to print my hand, what's the best way of doing it? Here we go. If I was trying to print a hand, and I've only got my fingertips touching the print bed, I've got very little surface area touching the print bed. So the chances of it breaking off mid-print are high. For something like a hand, and any of you that are out there with your thing, etc., might have a little bit of a thing going there, I would use a brim to start off, and it'll put a little ring around each of the fingers, just expanding how much
is touching the print bed or sticking to the print bed, and give me the best opportunity for that to print well and not dislodge halfway through the print. Now, if it was a really, really fine area, I might go to a raft, but I almost never use rafts anymore. I'll use nothing, give that a go. If I do get a failure at an early point, I'll keep an eye on it. I'll then go to a brim, and if that fails, I'll go to a raft as a last resort. So just something to sort of keep in mind with those things there.
Now, so Greg, the raft is a part of your actual print job?
No, it's an assistance part. So where did I put it? Anybody remember where I put it? Oh, there we go. So this is disposable. You throw it out, and that's part of the reason why I don't like them, because I'm wasting filament. This is your print.
You've told the software to print the raft.
You have a choice. So next week I'm going to go through the slicing software, because most of you at the moment probably do not have that software installed. So we're going to go through it in the meantime for you to have a look at that. And again, have a look at the videos, because there's some stuff on that that'll get you started. Between now and next week, what I'd like you to do is you'll need to get onto your TSO if you're not the TSO or you're the computer coordinator, and you need to get the FlashPrint slicing software installed on a T4L printer. Don't know why I'm doing that. That will allow you to slice your models to get them printing. So just to reiterate that again, it's the FlashPrint slicing software. It's available on UDM, and you can deploy that to one or as many of your T4L computers as you would like to. And once you've then got your modelling side of it, have a look at a few of the learning units that are available if you're going to kick off. I would suggest you play with this yourself. This is why we get them out week 8. You've got 2-3 weeks where you can play. You've got the holidays. I'd take it home, play with it at home. Your kids will love it. And your husband and wife will probably think, what is this thing? They'll have a ball that you brought something home to play with. But it'll give you that opportunity to get familiar with how the thing works. I am available through Teams on the channel here. You could use this chat. I have no problems with you throwing this chat in. I'll keep a bit of an eye on it and then go from there. And Lauren's already found it on UDM. Go. And already deployed. God, you're quick. Yeah, did you do that just now? Well done. Get that employed. Have a look at it, because the step is do your modelling. You create an STL file from your Tinkercad or whatever CAD software you're using. You take that STL, you load it into the FlashPrint software, it will slice it, and then you print that to a GX file onto your USB stick, plug it in here, and it'll come up as one of these objects and start printing it. Again, look at that. The default for the FlashPrint is to it'll usually come up with a pop-up that says, do you want to put a brim or a raft on it? If you're doing things like the name tags, which have got a big flat surface that's on the print bed, you do not need a raft or a brim. Print it straight out. Big flat surfaces are fantastic. This here definitely did not need a raft. That would have been sufficient. Would have been great. You could have just printed directly onto the print bed, because there's a nice big flat area for it to print. So how are we doing? Any other questions?
Suda's asked, if you have your own 3D printer, do we still ask the TSO to load on FlashPrint? And the answer is yes.
If you've bought the Adventure or a FlashPrint, if you've bought a FlashPrint, if you have bought a FlashForge printer, yes, you need the FlashPrint software, because it will have an option for all of its varieties of printers. There are other slicers out there that are free to get. Cura is one of them. The profiles to make it work with this printer are okay, but I find them a bit dodgy, and there is a pay-for one called SolidWorks, which is ridiculously expensive. Oh, for what you're getting, it's too expensive. Stick with the standard stuff. We've got all the support material for you to use there. It will make it easy for you to get started with your kids and work through that.
But if your school went and bought a different 3D printer,
there will more than likely be a different slicer package for that printer. Yes. Yeah, so if you bought a, let me think. If you went and bought a Prusa,
which is one of the best hobbyists, there is a Prusa slicer specific for the Prusa printer. So each printer tends to have their own slicing software or profile that will work with Cura or any of the free variants that are out there. So it's got the Flash Forward 4, it'll work nicely there. Nancy, what is the 0.3? Don't understand what you've got there, Nancy. Yeah, help me out a little bit. All right, now, what was the last thing I wanted to do? I've forgotten. All right, any last questions? Okay, have a play. Email me or through, Nancy's playing with her keyboard. Good one, all right. And we will go to a Q&A. Now, one thing before we finish, this will be available for you to use. I'm going to run a poll if Wednesdays are good for everybody to work with. How do I launch it, Stu?
You go into
I've found it.
apps and polls. Yep.
Yep, I've got it in there. I found a little. Here we go. Polls, names not recorded, results shared.
What's the question? Oh, it's on the right-hand side.
Oh, is that where it's coming up?
Comes in the chat, yeah.
Oh, can everybody see it in the chat?
A live poll has appeared in the chat, which says...
I have to press the little... Oh, there we go. Oh, you're already into it. Okay, if you can put a day that suits you better than Wednesdays, or if Wednesdays just ends up being the most popular for everyone, we'll stay with it. I've given you some options there. I've also thrown in the idea of putting it in on a... Why is it not asking the questions? Right.
I don't know, but you've asked the question. You're saying yes or no, is Wednesday 3:30 good for you? Is that what you're asking?
No. Oh, wait. Bang. Right, okay, I've got some options. No, right, okay. So is that coming up for everybody now?
Yes, it's popped up on the screen.
Perfect,
separately.
thank you. Rookie with polls. Thanks, Stu. If you can fill in the time, if Wednesday's okay for you, because we've had 31, so that's...
So this is a sorting exercise. So you're putting your preferences top.
I didn't say that. I said
bottom.
choose. Oh, bugger. All right, I'll throw another one up that makes more sense, people. Sorry.
That's okay.
And I'll try and give you some choice so you do it on a choice. There wasn't many options with it.
Most people are happy with
it appears Wednesday, and those people who couldn't get onto us are going to look at the recordings anyhow. If they find some value in it, then they're going to come back nicely. Now, we've gone well over time. I've got 3 minutes to be able to be within the hour. Get in touch with me if you can, and if you need a little bit of help, happy to attend. Now, the one thing that I do want to add to this is I am looking for, within this particular group that we've got going here, I'm looking at a couple of options, and we may do them all. For some of the closer to where we are here and where I am looking at eventually probably coming out to your school if possible and having a look at what you're doing with your 3D print and doing an in situ webinar, if that works. So you can show us what's going, because I want to get this sharing system working with all of you so that you can say, well, I'm doing this and it's really, really working well. And so you're doing a bit of a showcase. We do this a little bit in the Yammer hotspots and we do find it incredible. It's been the biggest draw card, I think, where people get to see what other people and hear what they're doing. You will be amazed. You will probably think that you're not an expert at doing something and you're not achieving anything brilliantly. You are achieving amazing things every time you do something with especially integrating tech into your classroom. And the other thing that I'd like to do is, at an easier level, would be have a couple of you come on, or one at a time come on as a little guest spot, just to sort of go through, well, what are you doing? How is it working? What are the pitfalls? What are your pluses and minuses? So that we've got a little bit of personality, get your face up on the screen as well, so we get that personalisation kicking in with our webinars, and so it becomes really, really nice. So I think we're pretty much out of time. Any last questions in the chat?
There was one. Are there any other items or software that we may need to purchase with printing?
Not at this point in time. So the printer has arrived. You've got the free software, which is the FlashPrint software. You've got the Tinkercad, which is free for you to use on any of the platforms. So you're pretty much covered for everything. Now, one thing that is interesting, your FlashPrint software
There is a Windows version. If you have Macs, you will need to download the Mac and install it. Stu, how do they do that? We got
it depends on whether they're Jamf Pro managed or not. If they're not managed, then they can just install it as a standalone computer.
Can you remind me then that we need to make sure that that's available on the Macs for Jamf schools?
Yeah, you'd need to talk to DDAC to get that packaged.
I'll get that done ASAP so that we can make sure that that's available. There isn't a slicing software that works with these printers available on Chromebooks or iPads, so you do need a full-blown laptop PC to be able, or desktop PC, to be able to slice your software. So that may be a restriction. If you're in that position, please get in touch with us ASAP. Any last questions?
It looks good. A lot of people would like you to come to their school.
I bet they do, which would be good. And I do like it because when I get out there at the schools, it's what actually kicked this off. I had a number of schools get in contact with me last term and the beginning of this term, and I went out to the schools, and those basic things, what do we do in order to get our prints working, was a common question. And so this is something, get you started, how to work your new printer, get the most out of the 3D printer rather than just sitting there and saying, well, I've had a failure and it doesn't work. Let's get a community going where we can all help one another, and I'm happy to come out and help you out in your school. Yeah. So enjoy the rest of your day. I hope
you've had an invite to Orange in the Central West and to Crescent Head as well.
Oh, well, we might swing that one.
But even if you can't get out to them, I'm sure that future episodes might have somebody come in online and have them share what they're doing.
What we could do in that respect, and Lyndon may just be listening and give me a hard time on this one, but if we had a group of schools in a particular regional area, that could work as well. That would be an interesting one. I could come out, we all get together, and we all have a day printing, so to speak. So that could be something that we could do really to sort of kick this 3D printing off. Okay, everyone, thank you very, very much. Thank you, Stu, for helping out. That was fantastic. And thank you for all your comments. Keep those coming and talk amongst yourselves in the chat. Of course, let's keep this thing going as long as we can. Thank you very much.
You're back next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, same time, same bat channel.
And there'll be a recording on the website.